Hi everybody, how you doing? It's me, Steven, back with another video for you. And this time I'm going to be looking at Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie. I said I would, and here it is. Interestingly, I didn't really discover David Bowie until recently. I always knew he existed, but I had never, I guess, bothered to look up his music. And that was a big mistake. Because once I did, I was like, wow, this guy's really good. I learned to play a lot of his songs, and this is one of them. I absolutely love playing Ziggy Stardust. I'm gonna have to keep my my song clips in this video to be a little shorter than the other one because I got a copyright claim. Nothing serious, but they just demonetized it. But it was my first video. I didn't have ads anyway, so it's fine. But anyway, from now on, I'm gonna have to keep the song clips a little shorter. So hope you understand. As I guess I'll just dive right in and start talking about Ziggy Stardust. So here we go. For me, Ziggy Stardust goes in category 1. Remember in my last video I said I had those 7 categories? It's a very linear story. It progresses in a way that we would recognize in pretty much any medium. It could work as a book or a movie or well, anything. And in the first verse you get character introductions, you get a little bit of setting, and the basic plot, the conflict of the story is quite apparent.
He played it left hand, but made it too far.
By the end of the first verse, you know that this Ziggy guy, whoever he is a little bit full of himself, it seems, and things aren't looking good. Another aspect of this is what percentage of the world do we see? And there are 2 answers to that, and the first answer is you see a small amount of the world. You can tell by the way the song is written that it takes place in our world. It's not in some like alternate reality or anything like that. But it doesn't show you the whole world. You just kind of get a sense from the way the song is written that it could be anywhere. Like it could take place in London or New York City or Paris or Shanghai, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a very down-to-earth story, but you don't see the whole world. All you see is the story, but you can tell from looking at the lyrics, looking at the way the story is told, that it's framed in such a way that there is a larger world outside of it. Now, just because I said that the story is told in a linear way doesn't mean that it's linear all the time. Most of the time it is, but there are a few instances where David Bowie uses the kind of songwriting techniques that Kurt Cobain used so much in Smells Like Teen Spirit, where you kind of dodge around the main point, or like you say like a bunch of really concrete things. That's not what Kurt did, but in this song, David Bowie says a lot of concrete things, and then backs it up with something that is a little more loosey-goosey. And this more metaphorical tone that he's taking is different than what Kurt Cobain did in Smells Like Teen Spirit. It's not metaphorical in its own right per se. It's more about using slang of the day and pop culture references of the day. And remember when I said that there were 2 different ways that you can tell like the scope of this story? This is another one. You know that this song takes place in the real world and that there is much more going on around it because there are references to things that we recognize now as being important back when he wrote the song. The metaphoricalness doesn't really come from like using these like vague metaphors that like take time to decipher. It's really about using slang and pop culture references that we just don't really understand as well now. And so it seems like it's out of left field, a lot of it. But in reality, it is kind of still, but not as much. So there's 2 different ways, or probably more, but so far on this channel, I've looked at 2 different ways of constructing metaphors, and this is just a different way. Later in the video, I'll get more into what these references actually were, because I didn't know them. I had to look them up, and there's still some debate, but I think generally we have a pretty good idea. Alright, so now I want to talk about the guitar. The guitar in this song is a lot of fun to play, and I looked up how to play it a while ago, and It's been one of my favorites to play ever since. Sometimes I just start playing it without even really realizing I'm doing it. It just seems to happen so well. It's such a smoothly flowing riff, and the chord progression is very nice. It feels very satisfying. So there are a few sections that I want to dive into. First of all, I want to talk about the chorus riff. It's G to a D to a C add 9 back to a G. It's a 4-finger G specifically, not a 3-finger G. So 4-finger, 3-finger. And the mute is very important because the mute, it gives a percussive element to the song without having to use drums. And I think there are drums in the song because it was a part of a full band. But still, it's interesting to use that in an acoustic guitar. The C add 9 to G, really, they're almost the same chord, but just not quite. Take a look. So you got the 2 fingers on the 2nd and 3rd strings from the top, and then you're holding the bottom 2 strings, like that. And then for G major, you just move these 2 up. C add 9, G. It's a great riff, I love it. The next thing I want to talk about is the part in the chorus. It goes A minor, G major, then F major, but it uses bars, so it's like this. My favorite part about that is the finger lifting, because what you're doing is you're playing a regular F major chord, but then you're lifting your finger off so you get the E, and it's really unusual. I've never seen this technique be applied by any other artist. David Bowie, though, he always has really interesting guitar parts, and I think when I cover Space Oddity, there's something in Space Oddity that I just love, and I can't wait to talk about it. So keep a lookout for that. But anyway. In this chorus, the mood gets darker, and that's really important because for most of the song the tone is very light and kind of funky, and it doesn't match the lyrics at all. But in the chorus, his tone of voice is still light, but the guitar gets more aggressive, and the guitar starts to really tell the story. Like the lyrics are telling the story, but the guitar is telling the story, if you know what I mean. I mean, just listen to this. I mean, that's just gnarly, and it's so much fun to play. So the next thing I want to talk about is the mood that the song creates, and it's very unusual. It's very weird. As I said earlier, the guitar and how the lyrics are sung clash with what the lyrics are saying, and this is a common technique. But in this song, it really puts the listener through an emotional experience, and it might not all be good. It can be kind of unsettling, at least to me it is, and I think to other people it is too. Because the lyrics speak of a really sad story. There's this great musician who's a bit arrogant, a bit carried away with himself, making love with his ego, and the rest of the band is plotting to tie him up and smash his hands. Like, Jesus Christ, like that's ridiculous. And the guitar outside of the chorus and the tone of voice that David is singing in, they don't convey the gravity of that. They just sound like a funky song. It's just kind of funky. He has a really nasally singing voice. The guitar is just a nice little progression. It goes G, B minor, C, D, G, E minor, A minor, C. That's the progression, in case anyone wanted to know. And there's nothing sinister about that. It's just a progression. And so at the end of the song, when you hear, when the kids had killed the man, I had to break up the band, it gave me chills. Like, holy, didn't see that coming. Because nothing about the way the song was being performed made you feel like the consequences were going to be that dire, but they are that dire. And I feel really weird about the fact that I don't feel worse, because you're not prepared to feel that bad. You think that maybe everything will be okay, or I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting actually, but I didn't expect that, and it creates a really uncomfortable emotional experience at the end of the song for the listener, because the lyrics and the tone of voice just don't match up at all. It's not bad, but my god, it's kind of creepy. Another thing I think worth mentioning is there's yet another outer space reference by David Bowie. I mean, if there's ever been an alien musician, it's probably David Bowie. I mean, like, the number of outer space references by this guy is out of this world. Like, he just can't keep himself from doing that. I think that's really interesting. It's part of his style, and I like it. You know, it's funky, it's weird. It's David Bowie. So now, it's time to talk about the end of the song. To me, what puts this in category 1, like I said at the beginning of the song, is how there is a story told in a concrete way with the setting and characters and all that, and then it goes through, there's an arc, and there's a satisfying conclusion. Now, satisfying does not mean it's like emotionally validating or comforting, but satisfying just means that all the loose ends are tied up. There's no ambiguity about like what's going to happen after in this story. It's done. Ziggy is dead, or at least it says Ziggy's dead. The band is broken up, that's it. So that's what I mean by a satisfying conclusion. It's not emotionally satisfying, but it's, for the story itself, it's satisfying. Furthermore, in this over the course of this arc, you don't hear everything. You don't hear the arguments that must have taken place. Just hear that it happened. But when the story reaches a plausible conclusion, you don't need to hear that. It's one of those things that songwriting can do that other mediums have a hard time with, because the way we're told the story is by very concrete, although with some pop culture references. It's a very concrete way, generally. And there isn't a lot of dialogue. Dialogue is difficult. I'll cover some songs with dialogue, and my goodness, I can't do dialogue. You feel like when the music is playing, you almost like hear the tension that is mounting within the music, like reading between the lines. You don't really need to hear everything. You can infer what happens, and that in being able to infer is the songwriter's best friend, because like I said in my last video, you can't spell everything out all the time, but you can infer, and inferring is perhaps even more powerful. Now, as far as the pop culture references I mentioned, I read, this is just one website's opinion, but I think it's generally pretty accurate. Ziggy is named after Iggy Pop. The "he played it left hand" line probably refers to other left-handed guitarists like Jimi Hendrix. And the main story comes from the idea of this, I believe it was a French musician, who believed he was basically Jesus reincarnated. And that's where you get lines like "he was the Naz," meaning Nazarene, I think. So those are the pop culture references, and there's some old slang in there like cat, and some stuff in the second verse too, so at the end of the second verse, that just is weird. It's just, we don't really fully understand its meaning today, but back then it would have been much more, I think, resonant with people of the time period. And of course the story still resonates with us, but we don't really understand the pop culture references as much. What is the point of the song? Because the song is telling a story, and so obviously in my last video, Smells Like Teen Spirit, the point was to create a mental revolution, but this is more of a traditional story, so it doesn't really do that as much. The point is to make people think, obviously, like I said, about the emotional battle going on inside of us. But also, it highlights a point, which is that arrogance leads to everything being destroyed, basically. It will not end well for anyone. Like I said, Ziggy dies, and the band is broken up, and that's that. I love how the song ends. It ends in the same way it begins. Ziggy played guitar. Those are the first lyrics and the last lyrics. And that's really powerful, because it sets up the conclusion at the beginning, and it references the beginning at the end. It's the core point. It's every problem led from this. Ziggy played guitar. If Ziggy didn't play guitar, none of this would have happened. You could say none of this would have happened if he wasn't arrogant, but ultimately, Ziggy played guitar, and don't you forget it, because that's the first line and the last line. So, my favorite part is it comes at the end of the first verse. I believe it's the last 2 or 3 lines. I'll play it right now. You can hear it. And I'll also put in the official David Bowie version. But like I said, smaller clips, so I don't get copyright claimed all the time. You played left hand, made it too far, became the special man, and we were Ziggy's band. Alright, so yeah, it was pretty much the last 2 lines. The last 3 are you know, also, it's kind of the same thing. It goes, he became the special man, then we were Ziggy's band. It's, I like the near rhyme. Man, band. It's the same vowel sound, but it ends with a different consonant. And that's, it's a common technique, and I like it a lot. I use it sometimes too, and it's a different way to spice things up. It doesn't really sound like a rhyme, but it kind of sounds like a rhyme. It's one of those, like, confusing type situations, and there's a lot of confusing situations in songwriting. Also, I like how those 2 lines really set up everything that comes after it. He became the special man, then we were Ziggy's band. Like, you feel like at that point, like, you know what's going on. It works so well, both as standalone lyrics and in the wider picture of the story. So those are my favorite lines of the song. Alright, well, thanks for watching, everybody. As I said in my last video, I got lots of ideas, so subscribe so you don't miss any of them. Stay tuned, keep your eyes open, because it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm having a great time doing this, and I hope you guys are having a great time watching. Again, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing, because there are so many songs I want to cover that, I mean, it's a difficult decision. Some of the song ideas I have are like Walking in Memphis, Little Wing, Jungle Land, and then obviously some Doors songs. I love the Doors. The Doors are like my favorite band. So I mean, I have tons of ideas. So anyway, have a great rest of your day, and I'll be seeing you again very soon. Bye bye.